Hello again. Now, I hope this is not too boring a subject for you, but I think it's important that you get the correct information. I say that because I've gone through the process myself. This is not a reflection on the foolishness that one can find ourselves in. It's not a reflection on reasons for being in that position, but I'm sure, as Stephen pointed out in a recent video he did through the eyes of a British expat in the Philippines, overstaying. The first thing I will say, don't try fixing it yourself. It's not that it's impossible, but I think you need expert advice. I'm not going to give you that expert advice. I'm just going to tell you what I believe will mostly happen in most of the reasonable situations that are put before immigration here in the Philippines. As we all know, that it's up to the immigration person dealing with your case on a case-by-case basis. In my case, I stuck to the rules for years because it just never occurred to me that I would ever allow myself to become an overstayer. But of course, my 3 years came up just when the Philippines decided, like the rest of the world, to shut the place down. So like many hundreds of people, many hundreds of thousands of people who were in the process of planning or going overseas to do their visa run at the end of a 3-year period of getting every 2 months a replacement visa, I found myself stranded. I found myself in a situation where not only was I stranded, I was a senior. So therefore, I had more restrictions upon my own movement than there were maybe over someone a bit younger. Nevertheless, we were all in that same position. And as a result, we were home detentioned, so to speak. We were allowed out to have inoculations. We were allowed out in certain circumstances. And it was a relief to be no longer locked in our home. But while that was happening, tick, 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 the government was not getting any money. People were not leaving the country like they would have done on visa runs, coming in and having their short period of time here, or maybe just extending. They were stuck, so no money was going through the government coffers over immigration, that's for sure. So, like many, I found myself unable to leave. And of course, when you're unable to leave and you have to look at each other day in, day out, strains come upon many of us. And my family was not exempt from that either. We all went slightly crazy. We also spent more than we probably would have normally spent if we had the freedom of moving around. We were stuck inside. We had to eat. We had to keep ourselves active. And hence more money was being spent. And when you're on a budget, every home has a budget, an expense. I found that I was spending merely double what I would have otherwise spent. And it was eating away very quickly my any chance of holding on to my savings. But after the opening up, there was also a period of time where one depending on where we came from, were still not able to easily travel without spending further money on quarantine. Australia was one of those places. And when you consider that the quarantine for a month's stay was more than the cost of your pension, it was too much to bear. So I found myself in a catch-22 situation. I wanted to leave, I wanted to make everything go, and it just wasn't happening. When it all finally opened up, of course, people get sick. People have dramas in their home, in their families. Again, some of these things involve money, and in my case they did. I found myself trapped between my wish to leave, to do the right thing, and being unable to financially. Hence, each month, each 6 months, each year just ticked on by. It's a horrible feeling. You want to do things right, but you just have got yourself into such a mess you can't see a way out. Well, one day I did see a way out. I saw an individual talking about overstaying and how their company helps people in that situation. A glimmer of sunshine for me. Again, still thinking, how am I going to pay all the fines and do all of this and that? And then on top of that, I've discovered that my passport has run out. Oh my goodness. I'm going to have to apply for a passport. I'm going to have to get it transferred from one to another. And I'm going to have to front up at immigration and maybe be arrested and deported from the country. Those are the fears that we have as an overstayer. And fortunately, the guys at JRC Visa Consultancy here in Manila, over there in Cebu, and I believe also another place, I think Davao. But you can find them on the internet. The guys there, they're more than professional. They're almost like counselors. They try and put your mind at rest. They give you a feeling of positiveness without trying to oversell the urgency and the importance of what you're doing. But nevertheless, the journey was definitely made much easier with JRC. And also, the time frame, the actual organizing of the final stages was only a matter of weeks. But the whole process took me nearly 6 months. First stage was to pluck up enough courage to go to JRC. A then friend of mine actually kidnapped me and took me there, in trying to encourage me to not be too procrastinating. And I'm glad that he did make me go there. Initially, it was a case of going and getting my Australian passport updated, which was one of the easiest parts of the exercise. It was one of the cheapest ones too. So we went ahead and got that done. Once I had that, I took that along with all the papers that I had previously, with all my different visas that I had applied for. As much paperwork as I could possibly put together, along with old passports. And I left it in the good care of JRC. And every so often, every 2 weeks or so, I was given an update by email, sometimes even a phone call from one of the consultants. Again, sort of putting my mind at rest, but thinking it's taking a long time. But as they pointed out, everything has to be done in a certain way. It's frustrating as it might be. One of my friends told me, "Oh my God, John, you're going to be up for £1,000,000 in fines." That wasn't a helpful bit of advice, I'm sure. But in the end, it cost 25,000 for every year that I was considered overstaying. They didn't allow any leniency, I should say, on the years where none of us could leave. So in the end, instead of it being 3 years, it became 5. So 125,000 was for being a naughty boy straight away. 25,000 per year. On top of that, you have to apply for what they call a what do they call it? I'll remember as I'm talking anyway. It's an extension of your visa done through immigration. It's a please help me, I do apologize, motion of consideration. That's the one I was thinking of. And that costs you, I think 10,000 pesos. Again, accompanied by a basic breakdown of what you believe to be the reasons for your lack of getting a visa done, being a naughty boy, so to speak. Again, you do a letter, covering letter, and their legal services put it in a way that comes across as a bit more down to earth and more straight to the point. But coupled with all that information, they finally, when they've got all the documents, all the paperwork, they take that arduous journey. One of their agents, not you. You've never had to be there. I never went to any immigration office. They do it all. They front up and do the whole lot. In between that time, I had to get an NBI clearance to show that I wasn't wanted or that I hadn't any reason to detain me. And then I also had to obtain an exit clearance visa certificate. So all of those things are done in a systematic order. And the last final bit is they give you an indication as to the cost. And in my particular case, it cost me, if I would add everything up, the passport, all the different things, plus the 35,000 that they charge for going and doing all that work for me. I think we were looking at 256,000 pesos. Some of you might say, whoa, that's a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but it's a very serious thing. But with the help of some very kind friends, one in England and one here in the Philippines, I was able to borrow the money to meet the debt. And already having received that money, pretty well at the beginning of the process, I was able to start repaying out of my pension, given the kind support I was getting from my Filipino person here, along with my friend in, I'll say, Wales in England. But fortunately, I paid everybody back at least half, and I'm on the road to clearing that debt completely before Christmas, hopefully. And the message I'm saying is, don't leave it too late. Don't leave it to the point where they have to come and knock on your door. Because if they do have to do that, I can pretty well guarantee you're going to be blacklisted. You're going to be told to leave. You're going to be deported. And if you have a family and friends and built up a life here, that's the last thing we want to have happen to us. Not only to us, but to those dear to us as well. So my advice, if I could ever give the most positive advice would be to go and see the guys at JRC. I'm sure there's other companies that do the same, but I can honestly say that JRC are a really, really good company to deal with. They don't give you any BS. They don't give you false expectations either. They've dealt with these situations every day. And I can assure you, I'm not the only one. As Stephen said, he was one once before. As many others have said the same, including the English guy who, I can't remember his name, I think his name is Bruce. Can hardly understand his broad northern accent, but he's telling the world about how he is one. The advice I could give him is to do the same trip that I did. Go and get good advice from JRC. Get somebody, if anyone, to help him get himself back in square A. In other words, back to the beginning where he's safe. Because I can assure you, thanks to the understanding people at BI, the wonderful people at JRC, I can do my thought for the day every day now with a feeling of relief and also a feeling of great gratitude to those that dealt with my case. And I can assure you I'll never allow myself to get into that position again, no matter what. And I'd go without food to make sure I paid everything on time. In fact, next week, a few days before I need to get my first renewal, I'll be going back down to the head office to extend my visa again. And by the way, you are given maybe 10 days in which to finally leave when it's all sorted. Everything is paid, and you will be literally met at the airport. You will be escorted onto the plane. Those that have seen my videos would also know that I was the only one on the plane when I was first escorted there. A very pleasant immigration guy, not at all condescending, not at all making me feel like I was a criminal. But after all, we broken the law and we're following their rules. It does feel a bit strange, but I'll give you one thing. When I was in the departure lounge and they called me up first, I think people were wondering, why was he going on the plane first? I felt like a VIP. And no, they don't put you in handcuffs, but they escort you through every process as you leave the country. And they literally say goodbye with a photo of you just standing inside the plane as you're being escorted to your seat by a young Filipino airline hostess. So after my day and a half away, I did come back, and by doing so, I sweated for a while, but I was greeted again by a friendly face in immigration when I got back. They took my photo as I got up to the counter, looked on their computer, said, "Welcome to the Philippines, sir," and I walked out, a free man again. So guys, take what advice I can give you, and that is, don't allow it to happen. Because the longer you leave it, you're guaranteed eventually they'll catch you. And it won't be such a good outcome in the long run. So I hope this video at least sparks a few people to don't let the grass grow under your feet. Get it sorted now. Don't put it off till tomorrow. Because tomorrow it might be somebody else knocking on the door. Not a friend, but somebody who wants to take you away. Ha ha. So, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Bye now.